Hello, my name is Dante Renee, and welcome to the 10 Room Bizarro YouTube page where I talk about films that I believe need to be talked about more. Like tonight's film, 1987's Pulsating Flesh. This is 1987's Pulsating Flesh, and this is part of the Vinegar Syndrome Peakorama Big 2-unit show. I've been looking at a lot of these lately. About 16 bucks I got this for. And this is on a double bill with a film called Super Sex, which I'll be looking at in the future. But for tonight, we're looking at 1987's Pulsating Flesh, and it says in the front poster, Unrivaled Passion and Ecstasy. This is directed by Carlos Tobalina, aka Troy Benny. And this is a 79-minute film from 1987. Here are two pics on the back of it right here. Get two pics without the glare. Okay, and let's look at this film from 1987, Pulsating Flesh, right here, folks. Great poster. Pulsating Flesh, 1987. This is a film that deals with a man who can impregnate any woman. Any woman. Doesn't matter if she's on birth control, doesn't matter even if he pulls out. This is a man who can impregnate any woman. And this X-rated film chronicles him attending a talk show. Because there's such interest in this man, so he goes on a talk show. And he goes on the talk show, and unbeknownst to him, at least initially, there are two lesbians who are watching their television. They love this particular talk show, and they're really loving and getting really turned on by this man's stories and of being paid to impregnate women. Sometimes they're wives, sometimes they're just women who want a baby. No matter what, he will impregnate them because he has a sort of super sperm about him. His name is Peter Longfellow. So let's get into this film called Pulsating Flesh about this man who can impregnate any woman around, and has quite a lucrative career in impregnating women, and even has a woman sometimes with him, at least initially, who kind of is someone who gets him started, and sometimes gets other people started as well. Let's get into this film from 1987. First and foremost, let's look at the music for this film. This is a very wide palette of music in this film. Typical to Carlos Tobalina, we have wall-to-wall music in this movie. Wall-to-wall music. This film is comprised of long and many sex scenes. The sex is the substance. The sex is the style for Pulsating Flesh. And Carlos Tobalina, we're looking at almost late 80s here. Still wall-to-wall music, just populating the sex scenes. There's so many sex scenes throughout this film, and taking the duration of the film, and the music is truly a character in those sex scenes. It's in the moments of dialogue, I would say, that you really don't hear the music. And the music covers a very laid-back palette in this film. It encompasses many instruments. We have harps and harmonicas and acoustic guitar and electric guitar, and we have flutes and wood instruments. And just this very interesting laid-back vibe to the music. Some, laid-back jazz, laid-back funk, and a bit of some atmospheric, fun-loving, almost you could hear it in a teen sex comedy music. You might even hear it in, you'd think you'd hear it in an episode of maybe Three's Company, that TV show. Very laid back, very fun-loving, and groovy, but not in a deep bass type of way, but in a very jovial, relaxed way. And there's some moments near the end of the film, near the climax of the film, that some really interesting soundscapes start to invade in. And if you know Carlos Tobalina's films, it'll be one song after another song after another song. And we will revisit songs in this film as well, which will tend to be the kind of some main themes for the film. Now, some Carlos Tobalina films, you just hear the music and you don't hear much moaning. Pulsating Flesh is one of the films where you do hear the music and you do hear moaning wall to wall in the movie, which I thought was really interesting. And he also tends to loop moans and loop sections of sexy, dirty talk during the sex scenes. He'll tend to loop them in some ways. We also have, this is one of those films where during the ejaculation scenes, we have this crazy kind of sci-fi space sound effect when a guy ejaculates. You'll hear like a pew, 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 pew. For some of his films, if you check out my other reviews in this YouTube page of many other Carlos Tobalina films, this is one of them where he does that, and he also will loop men's ejaculation scenes from different angles also. And if you check out the trailer, he even uses the same ejaculation scene from different angles in the trailer, at different points in the trailer. So very, very interesting stuff here. Now, when we look at the style of this film, and the cinematography, we have some great stuff going on here because we are on the set of a talk show. And then we are watching the talk show through, a 1987 small color television that is, let's just say, not high def. Okay, so you get that perspective as well. And you're getting the perspective of behind the scenes of a talk show, but you're also getting the what it looks like on television and the reactions of people watching it as well. And this is a film that acts almost at times like an anthology film. An anthology film has this man, Peter Longfellow, was on the television show, and he is speaking of his sexual adventures of impregnating women and getting paid to in his job. We are entering into those sexual adventures. And he actually brought tapes to the TV studio. So they're watching these tapes, and we are watching these tapes. So we, at home, watching this DVD, are now the viewers of the viewers viewing. And it becomes this, it's almost as if we are now at home watching the girls watching the television show, and we are watching his videos on the television show, and it just becomes this crazy, crazy experience. We have some close-up shots sexually in this film of like open vaginas and things like that. We have some in here, but we have a lot of different angles, I would say, for the sex scenes. And there's a brightness to them. And if you look really closely, there's one scene where one of the girls coughs. And it's interesting. It seems as though at times the people are muted with the sounds, kind of looped above them or over them, and then other times it's definitely live sound. Now, something that's very interesting in this film is that the studio audience for the television show is obviously not the studio audience that's there at all, but it's like this old footage of maybe people from the 50s or something, it looks like, or maybe 60s, early 60s, but it looks like the 50s, of older people and children and families and all these different age groups, and they're applauding and clapping during the sex footage that Peter Longfellow is showing on the television show, and it's so weird and hilarious at the same time with, kind of cutting in this studio audience. And as we know, a lot of television studio audiences canned laughter and things like that. So it's almost a play on that, which I thought was really interesting. Now, sexually speaking, this is a Carlos Tobalina film, so you're going to get tons of sex, wall-to-wall sex with the wall-to-wall music. And what's really special about the sex scenes is that they're all really great stuff. We have some lots of multiple people having sex in the room at the same time. But we have lesbian sequences with two girls with one guy. We have just two girls, vibrators, dildos, masturbation. We have it all. We even have some male masturbation in the film as well, and so, with some voyeurism. And the interesting thing in this film is that all the girls I thought were attractive in different ways, and you even have Harry Reams in here, who's a big male X-rated actor. But the interesting thing is in the themes of this guy. One section, one of his adventures, he gets paid to impregnate this guy's wife, and the husband is in the room, and you start to see what his interaction is and how he deals with this, and you start to see there was an interesting theme of a woman who wanted to be impregnated by Peter Longfellow, and so she knows that he likes a certain kind of girl, so she gets two of those girls to get him started and worked up. Then, just to make his ejaculation stronger, then he'll end at the girl that wants to be impregnated and is paying him to impregnate him. So you have within this scope, within this story of this man, there's some very interesting sexual dynamics on who is paying him, and also a twist ending with some comedy and some humor at the end of the film in regards to the fact that this man can turn on any women, even women who don't necessarily want to be impregnated, and some of these shocks and the twists, and let's just say it involves people fainting. Yes, it involves people fainting, and a great closing credit sequence. There's even a great title sequence at the beginning of the film of the title of the film, and it has pulsating flesh, pulsating on the screen, and with kind of one of the main pieces of score in the film. This is 1987's Carlos Tobalina's Pulsating Flesh, put out by Vinegar Syndrome. Vinegar Syndrome is definitely, they're an unbelievable distribution company, and I've been looking at a ton of their films. I bought a crap load of their movies recently, and I've been going through them. So this is 79 minutes, and these are part of their Peak-O-Ramas where there's like a double feature show, and these films, being 80 minutes, 79 minutes, they make perfect double feature shows. So here it is, folks, Pulsating Flesh, 1987. Thank you so much for watching the 10 Room Bizarro YouTube page where I talk about films that I believe need to be talked about more, like Pulsating Flesh. Please feel free to check out all my other reviews in this YouTube page involving exploitation, horror, lots of sexploitation, erotica, adult X-rated films, surreal, bizarre, underground, and even a PG-13 weird teen sex comedy per se called The Night Before with Keanu Reeves and Lori Loughlin. That's on here as well. Tons of Jess Franco, Walerian Borocek, Joe Sarno, and of course some Carlos Tobalina, and tons more to come in the future. Please feel free to check out my own personal films by Googling Apartment 1014 Films. Thank you so much and have a great night.